connect.
We're good. So we're going to record. So we'll
still connected to the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there were people there, and I tried to move something. So,
well, we can still hear you, Judy. So all good. All good for now.
Minutes. Yeah, I noticed.
Oh, okay.
So Amber, did you
Yeah,
used to
that
work
whole
in
minute
Pittsburgh
thing.
or something? No.
I was the administrator in Pittsburgh for 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Your camera work? No work?
No.
Work.
Favorite job now.
I should have brought mine.
I was going to bring Paul.
So it looks like Brendan, you're going to keep an eye on the clock when you want to start the meeting. I think we're expecting a handful more people, but
Yeah, well, it's not quite 2 o'clock yet. So.
I know we're eager beavers here. That's good.
So, Judy Tunkel from Dresden is here, but my camera's not working. But we also have Don Gleason and Susan Lamb from the committee. So we're all in the library and we're all together, faceless.
Well, that's great. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Mary Ellen.
Hi, John. How are you?
Pretty good. How you been the last 10 years?
Well, my hair's gotten a little grayer. Yep.
Unlike mine, it got browner. Good to see you again.
Yes, good to recognize your name. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, the way they do it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
Oh, it's weird on Zoom on laptop. I hold.
It's oh sorry, it's TOW. The Wi-Fi network.
Okay, well, it's just after 2 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. So I'd like to welcome everybody to our first ever Coastal Maine Regional Broadband Coalition meeting. Quite the mouthful. So my name is Brandon Look, and I'll be helping to start this broadband coalition and help bring all of you together, and so we can help each other coordinate a lot of the information and abilities we already have, and bring everybody together so we could expand broadband accessibility. So I would like to introduce Mary Ellen Barnes, of which a lot of you already know. Mary Ellen, if you'd like to say aye.
I look forward to hearing from you folks today. So thank you for making the time.
Okay. So you'll all be in communication at one point or another between Mary Ellen or myself. We're looking to hold some of these coalition meetings between Knox, Lincoln, and Sagadahoc counties, and we'll be holding webinars such as Zoom meetings like today, and as well as a mix of in-person and hybrid meetings throughout the coming months. So we look forward to that. So today we're going to give you a quick rundown on what is Coastal Maine Regional Broadband, what's our purpose, how are we folded into a lot of this, how we can help the broadband committees that have already been established, and how we can better support you. We'll have several representatives from the Maine Connectivity Authority also address what that is and what's happening on the state level, on the state side, and what they can give you as far as helping out and giving support. So, Mary Ellen, if you'd like to take it from there.
I'm just going to make just a minute here because I know that we've got a packed agenda. Most of you I know have been working hard in your towns to get better internet service, and that work continues. And so as part of this regional partnership grant that we received from MCA, Evan Gukowski and myself are going to continue to work with towns on that issue, getting improved internet service. But what we're going to do today with your help with this digital inclusion plan is to look at the human dilemma, the human face of the use of the internet in our region. So many of us take the internet for granted, like we don't hesitate. And when it's not there, like when Judy's camera doesn't work, or somehow we're not able to connect with the Department of Labor or things like that, that's unusual for us. But many of our neighbors do not have the ease of access, the ease of use, the affordability that we have. So we're looking at that dilemma today, or for the next few months. We're going to be looking at the dilemma that our neighbors face, whether it's affordability, whether it's the age of their computers or the age of their cell phones, whether they lack the confidence or the skills to actually get online and apply for jobs or take community college training. So that's what we're looking to really hear from you. And I think, as Brandon might have indicated, we're hoping to have some in-person meetings in the next couple of weeks and then build from there. So I think maybe, Brandon, in the interest of time, maybe we could ask Maggie if she could provide some background, what's gotten us here, what the state's doing, what the federal government is doing, in order to sort of balance out the great efforts that were being made across the state around actually improving our speeds, improving our fiber and cable resources. So I think, Maggie, you've got a bit to share with us. So I'll let it, thank you.
Great, thanks, Mary Ellen, and thanks all of you for being here today. And I really apologize for the background noise. I'm at the Net Inclusion Conference in San Antonio, Texas, and happy to report that we had 18 of us from Maine here, who are many of us working on digital equity and digital inclusion for the first time. It's just been an amazing week, and we have lots to share with all of our Maine folks when we get back. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Maggie Drummond-Bahl. I'm the Strategic Partnership Director for the Maine Connectivity Authority. And in my role at MCA, I lead our team that is supporting community and regional capacity building. I lead our digital equity program and planning efforts. and also helping to oversee our partnerships with other state agencies and partnerships generally. And as Mary Ellen suggested, my role here today is to give you a bit of the big picture and sort of help you understand what's happening over the next few months, in particular related to the digital equity and digital inclusion planning efforts and the overall broadband action plan. And I won't be able to stay with you for the entire meeting. I do have a meeting following this with the federal government, who was asked for some feedback from states. So I do have to go to that after that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen and I'll walk you through this. And Susan Corbett is going to join us and she's just having a little trouble connecting over from the hotel. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So just first, I think most of you know what the Maine Connectivity Authority is, but we often like to start there. We are the quasi-governmental entity that was established at the end of 2021 by the governor's office and the legislature to help manage and be a proactive partner in distributing the broadband funding that is coming through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. So as you may have been familiar with Connect Maine, the previous state's broadband office that sat within the Department of Economic and Community Development, we have operationally merged with Connect Maine and are contracted to fulfill their mission, in addition to taking on this new significant role in managing our broadband deployment. So we're a new entity and growing staff, and just really excited to be working with all of you in this work. So the big picture is that the Infrastructure and Jobs Act that was passed created two significant funding sources for broadband and digital equity in Maine. The Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program is the primary source of funding for infrastructure to the states. It also includes opportunity to invest in our workforce development efforts in order to do all of the broadband deployment that we need to do with this investment. The Digital Equity Program provides funding for the first time for the states to develop a digital equity plan and then to implement that plan through programs, projects, and partners. So between the two of these programs, we expect to see an allocation to the state of Maine that is somewhere around $250 million for the infrastructure investment and somewhere around about $126 million for the digital equity and inclusion work. The federal government was very clear about tying these two programs together, even though they are separate. So what we have opted to do in the state of Maine is combine our planning process and create one broadband action plan so that we are doing outreach and engagement and working with stakeholders in one process. And the result will be a broadband action plan that has digital equity woven throughout, and also a standalone digital equity report or a plan that we can pull out of that overall broadband action plan. This is our short and intense timeline, and we are at that first stage where we're launching into engagement. There are a number of things happening throughout the next couple of months. There will be community meetings. The survey is rolling out today, so you'll all receive information about that at some point in the next hour or so. We are organizing focus groups and obviously working with stakeholders to talk about the broadband plan and get input about the broadband plan through other existing events throughout the next couple of months. In May, we expect to take everything we've learned during this engagement period and begin to draft our plan. Then in June, that draft plan, having been shared with our stakeholders, will be put out for public comment for the month of June. And we will, in the month of July, take all of that feedback and public comment and integrate that into the plan so that we can finalize it and submit it by August 1st. So it is a short, intense timeline, but we think it's doable, and we're calling on a lot of partners and stakeholders and collaborators to help make this happen. So just to give you a sense of the stakeholders and partners that are working with us throughout this process, the first, of course, is the Regional and Tribal Broadband Partners Program. So we have 13 regional and tribal partners, including Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission. They are covering every region of the state. And we also have a tribal partner who is working directly with all 5 of the tribal communities. And the regional and tribal partners, all of them are pulling together coalition conversations just like this one. So the work that you'll be doing is being replicated in all the other regions of the state. Our interagency broadband working group is where we're bringing together our state agency partners. That's everybody from Department of Transportation to Economic Development to Maine Housing, and really trying to understand how broadband and our broadband plan can help the state reach our other goals, and also identify some of the barriers and opportunities that we see in those relationships with state agency partners. Our Workforce Advisory Committee is a group that is helping us really understand the need to build our broadband workforce and identify the strategies to meet that need. And we released our first workforce analysis, and we'll be working to begin implementing and understanding what those strategies need to be that will end up in the broadband action plan. Our capital markets task force is helping us identify where some of the gaps in funding may be and what some of the other sources of funding might be available to fill those gaps. So we are one of the states where, as generational as this investment is, it may not meet all of the needs that we have. So we're actively anticipating that and finding other ways to ensure that we can get everyone connected. The Digital Equity and Inclusion Task Force is a group of partners that serve and represent all of the covered populations that are named in the Digital Equity Act. And I'm going to go through those in the next slide to give you a little better picture of that. Those are the partners who are helping us ensure that we create a digital equity plan and a broadband action plan that really centers on the folks that we need to reach, that we know are most impacted by the digital divide. We also are working directly through a formal consultation process with each of the tribal nations, and that is happening throughout the month of March and a little bit in the beginning of April. So from all of those stakeholder groups, we have a couple of representatives from each that will form a steering committee, and the steering committee will work with the MCA board and MCA staff to work through those drafts and final versions of the plan and give it final approval before we submit on August 1st. So the covered populations, you've heard us mention this a little bit. I liked the phrasing that you used, Mary Ellen, or the human element of this work. The federal government getting this funding out to states, they said, we know that there are populations that face more barriers to getting connected and are impacted by the digital divide. And so we're going to tell the states to pay the most attention to these populations. So it's low-income households, older adults, people who are incarcerated or are, I heard this phrase yesterday here at the Net Inclusion Conference, re-entering citizens, veterans, individuals with disabilities, folks that are facing a language barrier, members of racial or ethnic minority groups, and those that live in rural areas. And by the definition of rural that NTIA has included in the legislation, virtually all of Maine is considered rural, with the exception of a few areas. So the NTIA has estimated that 89% of our population in Maine identifies as one or more of these covered populations. So we know if we focus on these populations, we will be substantially reaching all the folks that we need to reach. And this is the structure really for our digital equity plan, and will be, of course, woven throughout that overall broadband action plan. So what happens if we do all this work together? First, we have a roadmap for how we will make decisions, how we will deploy these infrastructure funds and our digital equity funds. We will have potentially more diverse geographic targets. We'll have a lot more data to help drive our decisions, and a lot more data to share with our partners and stakeholders throughout the state. And then we'll also see what we're seeing already, which is really a growth in the partnerships who are thinking about broadband, thinking about digital equity, and the potential projects that we can work on together. So we're really excited to get through this planning period to the point when we have a great plan in place and really can begin partnering with one another to implement all of the priorities that we outlined in our plan. So ways that you can help, first, just understanding the process and the timeline, being able to share that with others so that we're really getting the word out through all of our partners about what's happening and what this opportunity means. Helping us really identify the assets that will support digital inclusion and digital equity across your region. We have taken a first cut at a asset inventory, and Mary Ellen and Brandon will share that with you. And in each of the regions, we will be collecting additional assets that might help in your digital inclusion work. And we're creating a space on our website where over time, people will be able to search for those resources and programs, and they'll be able to add new resources in an ongoing way as we identify them. So it's really, we have a first draft, but it's not a static kind of inventory. It will be constantly updated and managed over time. And we need your help in developing the digital inclusion plans for the regions. So I'll emphasize, we really wanted to work at the regional scale, first because we thought it would be the best way to get as close as possible to the communities and the people that we need to reach and whose priorities need to be reflected in our plan, but also that it gives us an opportunity to get to scale with some of the assets and programs that we have. So for example, there may be a small rural community that doesn't have a library, doesn't have a critical digital inclusion asset, but within the region, there are lots of other resources and assets that could be leveraged to support work in that community. So we're sort of striking that balance between those two priorities. And then lastly, just tell everyone and anyone that you know about the engagement opportunities over the next 2 months. We really want to make sure that people have the opportunity to give some input into the broadband action plan, and it reflects all of our shared priorities. And that's really what we're relying on our regional and tribal partners and all of those other stakeholders to help us do, to spread the word, get folks to give us their input and ensure that this plan is as good as it possibly can be. So I will stop there. And I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know how tight our agenda is, but I can certainly answer questions in the chat as well. And I'll stay on as long as I can.
Okay. Thank you, Maggie. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So one thing I'd like to take a quick look at with everybody is I'm going to bring up some of the covered populations again. And we can see low-income households, older adult aging individuals, those incarcerated, those with language barriers, veterans, disabilities, etc. So what I'd like everybody to do, since we're going to be asking for a lot of feedback from each of you in each of your groups, is I'd like all of you to put your names in the group that you're affiliated with. It could be a town, it could be an individual group, library, etc. I'd like you to put that in the chat so that everybody can see where each group is coming from.
Brandon, some people might not know your name
Oh,
unless
Brandon,
you've changed it to Lincoln County last night.
so my name is Brandon Look. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why it's showing up as Lincoln County. So it's Brandon Look, and I'm working with Mary Ellen on the Coastal Maine Regional Broadband. So you can identify by town, or if you're part of a separate broadband group or a library, please put that in. But that way we can all see and we can all get a sense of, okay, who do we have, say, in this meeting already? And I want you each, because it's not as convenient as looking around the room when you're all physically there. I want you to look through the chat and see who's here, who might we need, who's still in our community that could be connected with some of these groups that you don't necessarily see represented in the chat. So is there somebody who deals with a veteran group in your community that maybe isn't in attendance today? So I just want each of you to start thinking about connections like that.
So Brandon, if I might just add a quick point. Maggie referred to an asset inventory, and we've been working on our own. I've been calling it my Excel charts. So we have charts of the libraries, we have charts of the senior groups like Midcoast Cap and Penquist, the vet groups, things like that. So we'll be getting that information out to you, so to Brandon's point, that you can add to it if you will. So we'll be getting that out to you the next day.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. So yes, the more feedback we get, obviously that's going to help putting a cohesive plan between the three counties together. But we'll be putting all of this information out to all of you, and that will be could be via email and also through our website. So I will put that in the chat right now. There we go. And I'll bring it up as well. So it's currently under construction, but as we get more and more information, we will be posting a lot of the information we get and all of the data in groups, and we'll be linking to anybody who's got web pages or social media on here as well. So obviously we want a lot of this information so we can help out having a cohesive plan to forward up to the Maine Connectivity Authority in the state of Maine. But we also want to provide resources for each of your groups directly and just provide help at the local level if you need a little bit more or need to find some new community partners.
Brandon, would you mind if I ask Maggie a question before she has to scoot? I just wonder, Maggie, you've got a lot of things going on with these statewide working groups. You've mentioned a few, the workforce group. Is there an opportunity via the MCA website for folks around the table here, around the Zoom screen, to learn more about the work that's going on? Because I know we're not going to be able to cover everything in depth today, but I think that MCA is doing a lot of interesting work. So.
Yes, the MCA website will be updated or was updated yesterday, I think, with much more of the information about the planning process itself. So there's an email going out to our entire list today to announce the opening of the survey. And that will include a link for additional information about the planning process, which is also living on our website. And then there are sections for each of our existing programs now. So both our infrastructure programs and technical assistance programs live there as well. So There's a lot to dig through on the website. And of course, please do contact me anytime. I'm going to put my email into the chat for folks who might have follow-up questions. As you're looking at any of that, do feel free to reach out.
Now, one thing I'd like to make sure comes across to everybody is when you're looking across your community into expanding broadband access, try not to limit yourself to what would be somebody who would obviously need some broadband access. So somebody who's creating digital art or doing a lot of telecommuting back and forth to work. Don't think of just those people. Don't limit yourself because there's a lot of technology that's really expanded over the last few years. And there's a lot of industries that traditionally haven't needed internet access that are now in the process of utilizing it more and more. So ask around, and that also comes part and parcel with on our website as we start folding in and pushing out some of our partners across this coalition, is you'll be able to see some of the other industries that you may have never thought of to include. So ask around, keep an open mind for what you're going to need and what businesses you may want to take a look at and what groups you may want to take a look at. All right. So as we build out over the next month for our digital asset inventory, Mary Ellen spoke to this a bit briefly, as did Maggie. So over the course of the next month, we'll be unrolling a survey that will be sent out to everybody. And that will be sent out directly, as well as posted to our link through our website. And in conjunction with that, we'll be hosting 3 meetings, one for each county. That will be a mix. They will be in person and via Zoom, so hybrid meetings. But that way, anybody can attend if they are provided the link or need to just make one meeting or two. But we're hoping by holding each of these in one meeting in each county that we'll be able to really bring some more of the locals from those communities together, and we can have a really good brainstorming session over what's needed in the area, what already exists in the area, and where we need to go, because everybody, each town, each county is a little bit different. So we're hoping that will really give us a good picture. And as we go through, we'll be sharing that information out with all the other coalition members. So somebody may have a line on a good type of grant, or they may have had a good idea for how to unroll something for, say, libraries that everybody else just isn't aware of, or they may have only heard of once and aren't sure of how to do it. So we're hoping we can just really take that information and help keep it coordinated across everybody in this coalition. All right. So, Mary Ellen, would you like to speak to a little bit more on the coalition role and?
Well, I think a bit you have, and Maggie has kind of described the importance of public participation, and in the last couple of weeks, as we've reached out with a new process, so we're letting the world know in Mid-Coast Maine that this process is going on. But we've been in touch with, I think we have 40 or so towns in the in the 3-county area. So all the town managers, all the county leaders, if you will, all the select boards and broadband committees have been informed. Plus, we've invited a number of others, as I mentioned earlier, Mid-Coast Cat, Penguins, things like that. So what we're looking to do with your assistance is, and I'll be sending the Excel charts out to you. Take a look at the libraries, take a look at the veterans list, take a look at the senior groups in your area, and please, as I think Maggie and Brennan have encouraged, please broaden we want to make sure that we're as inclusive as possible as we develop the outreach to the organization. So I believe that this is, so we're kind of excited that we're going to hold a meeting in each county, gives us a chance to just get down to 10 or 12 towns as opposed to 40 towns. But then we're going to be bringing this together and doing some interviews and outreach. But I think by the end of, or early to mid-April, we're going to, as a group, really finesse a digital inclusion plan and then finalize that to the state, I think by the end of the month, end of April, if I recall my schedule properly. So the coalition, I think, I'm really pleased with the turnout today. I'm hoping the coalition is going to get bigger. But I wondered too, because I'm not sure what everybody's schedule is. Maggie's someplace, I don't know where Susan Corbett is, but she's here on our screen. So Brandon, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have Susan talk with us more about digital equity.
Hey, Ellen, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping that you can hear me okay. I am also in San Antonio, and there's a lot of background noise behind me, so hopefully we'll be able to get through this. And I have a very unstable internet connection, go figure, right? I'm going to go ahead and share screen. And all right, so my name is Susan Corbett. I am the Executive Director of the National Digital Equity Center with our home office in Wiscasset, Maine. I am also the co-chair of the State Digital Equity Task Force, and I'm going to be your consultant over the next couple of months as we develop a digital equity plan for your region. So we're going to talk a little bit about that plan today and how we're going to get there. But first, I think we want to talk about what exactly are we talking about in digital equity and digital inclusion. So we know that digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and community. When the pandemic happened, we saw how deep the digital divide was across our students that didn't have an internet connection, maybe because it wasn't available to them, or maybe the family couldn't afford it. Or it wasn't enough of an internet connection for everyone in the family to be online at the same time. The same was true for remote workers who were suddenly remote workers and may not have had an internet connection, couldn't afford it, or maybe didn't have the devices in order to participate as a remote worker. And then the group that we really were concerned about were our older adults across the state of Maine who were already we were already worried about their isolation and loneliness, and then we had a shelter-in-place order, and they didn't have internet connection, devices, or the digital skills to connect to family, friends, and healthcare providers over video programs. We achieved digital equity by promoting digital inclusion, affordable broadband, affordable equipment, digital skills training, computer access, and technical support. Over the next few months, we're going to identify the barriers to those digital inclusion components, what the recommendations are going to be to address those barriers, and then how much is it going to cost us to close the digital divide in your region by increasing access to broadband equipment, skills training, and computer access. Covered populations, heard this already today. We're going to talk a lot about this over the next couple of months. It is digital inclusion as it relates to these covered populations, and what are going to be our recommendations for addressing the barriers for each of those digital inclusion components. As all of you are working on a regional level, there are also statewide groups that are working on issues like rural healthcare, youth, rural flight, return, affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also be looking at that on the local level to be sure that we hear all of the voices that that show us where the barriers are and how we can make it better. In the next couple of months, we have several things that are going to happen. We're going to be scheduling meetings, forming subcommittees or ad hoc groups. The state survey, as you've heard today, is going to be rolled out this week. We're going to continue adding to that digital asset inventory. As a region, you'll have a vision statement. We'll talk about the timeline. There'll be community meetings and outreach. We are going to get to a budget, and we will have a final report all due by the end of April. This is really, really fast track process, but I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to get there. I'm going to stop share there, and I'm of course always available for questions. I'm going to put my email in the chat so that you all have it. Thanks, Mary Ellen.
We're very excited to have really Maggie and bringing all the processes and planning efforts at the MCA, and also Susan with her. I don't know how long you've been working on digital equity across the state, across the country, but we're really pleased that you're able to provide us with ongoing support. So I don't want anyone to be shy. These ladies, no, anyway, they've shared with you their email addresses. So, but they're great resources. So I didn't know. So I've already mentioned that we're going to get out to you the digital asset inventory that's been created so far, and by I think it's you, Maine, that helped to create that, and then the work that we've done to tally out our 3 county organizations up. And so we'd love you to take a look at those. So I won't spend any more time on that, but Susan, would you be able to talk a little bit more, just a little bit about the affordability program? I know we've heard, most of us have heard about it. They are aware that there's the subsidy that comes out of the FCC, but that's going to be a kind of a key tool that the state's going to be able to tap into to assist people with kind of reducing the cost of internet. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, Ken. Let me just pull up another slide deck for you. All right. So the FCC, in partway through the pandemic, issued an emergency broadband benefit for homes to apply for a discount on broadband. It morphed into the Affordable Connectivity Program, which rolled out about a year ago. The Affordable Connectivity Program offers a $30 a month per discount to all households that meet 200% of federal poverty guidelines. That means that a family of 4 with a family median income of $55,000 or less is eligible for this program. If you live on tribal lands, that discount is $75 per month. The FCC recognized that we didn't have enough people signing up for this program. So in Maine, we have about 64,000 homes, and there are well over 200,000 homes that are eligible. And they issued an RFP for a grant program early January to help facilitate the promotion of the Affordable Connectivity Program and increase awareness and participation of in this program. We get back to the covered populations. The FCC is focused on the covered population. How many homes can we reach that fall under one of the covered populations, and that we can have apply for that ACP benefit? I don't know whether Maggie has mentioned it or not, but 89% of all Mainers fall under one of the covered populations. The National Digital Equity Center has applied for one of those outreach grants. It is a statewide project. It would bring 13 digital navigators, 1 for each of the rural and tribal broadband partners, about 10 hours a week for the next couple of years. We're also looking at a full-time digital navigator to focus on the covered populations. And then there'll be stipends for each of the rural and tribal broadband partners to host 4 events a year. as well as for stipends for volunteers to work at those events to help family sign up for the program. There's a new term, digital navigators. It's a new job, and we have a few digital navigators here in Maine. They are individuals that are trusted guides that address the whole digital inclusion process. They help individuals and families sign up, figure out what they need for broadband, help them with devices and determining which device is the best device for them, helping them with digital skills, perhaps in helping them sign up for an email address. So what we're hoping to do is to build those digital navigator workforce across the state of Maine. The National Digital Equity Center has training for all digital navigators. If anyone is interested in that, please, by all means, reach out to me. I'm more happy to assist. And then I'll go ahead and stop share. We should be hearing about the FCC grant, we think sometime this month. I'm hoping to hear sooner rather than later. And then as soon as we know that, we will let all of our rural and tribal broadband partners know. And we're hoping that we can get a digital navigator in your region. So thank you so much, Mary Ellen.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So as we build out, we're looking at building a plan across our coalition between our 3 counties, and that's in the immediate future. But we're not going to stop there. After that, then we're going to not really change focus, but more expand our focus on providing support to a lot of the community members, to your individual groups, for digital education, along with that digital navigator program, expanding that across our coalition, as well as helping as best we can and helping to facilitate your individual groups and or towns, putting you in contact with people that can help guide you for individual grant programs and helping you out with that and giving you some of the information that we've collected that can really help you apply and make your grant stand out. So we're really hoping a lot of that information, it's a little bit further down the road, but we're hoping a lot of that as we build up is really going to come back to really support you. So we've had a handful of questions in the chat so far. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to bring up to the group or maybe throw in the chat?
Hi. There are programs, I believe it's called Healthy Maine, and they help with people to find doctor's appointments and all of these things, and like food banks and stuff like that. Gosh, I wish I remember the name of it. I grabbed my phone, but they might be a really great resource to get in contact with. You know, they help everybody all through Lincoln County, and they might go further than that. But I know that they're here. They work with like Meals on Wheels, and they help take some to some of the places that we don't get to. And I mean, that kind of program I would love to see come through. I'm just not sure what I can do. I mean, you said communicate with friends and the community and stuff like that. And just not sure how to get out there and do that, you know, knock on doors, because I don't know everybody here at Bremen, you know.
Well, and we've got some tools, we've got some questions, you know, a sort of short interview, informal interview questions, Deb, that we'll get out to everyone, and you can craft them for conversations, you know, that you can be comfortable with, or sometimes we just email people and say, hey, would you mind filling this out, depending on how many phone calls and interviews you can set up. But we'll get some tools out to you.
Great.
And also for you to, you had a couple good suggestions in the chat, so we can introduce you to Todd Brackett, right?
Yeah, he's such a cool dude. Yeah, because Lincoln County Sheriff's Department, they have people they know are shut-ins way out in the boonies, and they
Yep.
call and check on them every week. And if they don't answer, they go out to the house to make sure they're okay. And boy, it seems like a lot of these older folks not really familiar with communicate on computers
Right,
would love to be able to Zoom chat with their grandkids and
Right,
stuff
yep,
like that.
yep.
That live across the country, yada yada. So I don't know how to really
So-
get a hold of them. Sorry.
So Deb, what you're doing right now is one thing. What right now we're looking for everybody in the coalition to do of saying, I don't know everybody, but have you thought about this group? Or maybe, the sheriff's department checking on these disaffected people. The group you were talking about, by the way, is Healthy Lincoln County.
That's it. Okay, great.
So is there that? Are there certain things that maybe you've heard of, but also going into groups that we may not instantly associate it with? A lot of doctors' offices are expanding telehealth programs. So there's a lot. There are several retiree centers that I know of across the state that are expanding their internet capabilities because they need to expand those telehealth capabilities
Right.
to take care of their population. So right now, it really is what we're looking for everybody is, what is your group? Do you know of anybody or any specific communities? Do you have contacts with them? Do they know about us? Do they know about Coastal Maine Regional Broadband? Do they know about your local broadband committee? Let's start putting everybody in touch with each other.
Have we connected, or will we possibly connect with Spectrum Generations?
Yes. Spectrum Generations has like 4 or 5 offices in 3 counties. So we've talked to Jerry Quealy a couple times.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Great.
So I see Don had his hand up.
Yeah, my question was, has there been any contact with Maine Health? Because I think most people in Sagadahoc would go through Maine Health for their medical services. And I have no idea what their capabilities are. And whether there's any opportunity for us in Rousick to link into that network.
So with some groups, so today we're pulling in a lot, mostly on the community side of things, but there are other groups such as those who have a definite interest. So Maine Health, Lincoln Health, some of the independent doctors' offices or dental offices. Some of the established groups like that, or the individual sheriff's departments, we're pulling those in. Today was trying to get more of a general community, but we are in talks with a lot of those groups, and they will definitely be invited when we do the county level meetings. So you'll have somebody, so you have community members as well as those groups, such as county or town administrators and Maine Health and Sheriff's Department or PD or EMS there as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the whole library system and allowing people to link into that and perhaps download books or whatever. The library system is, I think, got a quite extensive network, but from my standpoint, I really don't know how we can utilize that to help promote our broadband service.
So that's
So I
something.
need more information.
That's something that I think we're going to be tackling a little bit further down the road. So right now we're just really trying to get a good, accurate picture of where everybody stands, but something like how libraries can support you. Once we get a lot of this information, we can share it out. One of the things we'll be doing to support all the coalition members, we'll be saying, okay, if you guys are going to apply for grants to expand your broadband capabilities, how do you phrase it? Or how can those individual groups support you? How can you put that language into, say, a grant program, or present it to the town council or perhaps the county itself, and bring them into the fold, so everybody's on the same page supporting each other?
Yeah, we are one of the 15 awardees of the first Connect the Ready
Yes.
round from MCA. So we're almost ready to go. Our make ready should be completed, we would hope, by the end of April. So, timing is important to us here to help market the service and get our take rate up.
No, you've been waiting a long time for that, Don. So to your point, and
Yes.
Brandon's point too. So we're going to be learning from each other, and I appreciate that Ruben Mahar has added in chat that he's going to be able to work with us a little bit on Maine Health Connections. But we're, we've been doing this planning work and working on other aspects of broadband. Some of our libraries are already doing this work. So Bremen, Booth Bay Harbor, and maybe Scadumpha in our little neighborhood, they have some people who either do some tech help, or they're really looking to expand the way that they serve people. To Don's larger question about what role can libraries have, it's so I think we're going to be able to swap stories and see what other towns are doing, what other libraries are doing. But there's a lot of people who are, in the meantime, while we've been trying to upgrade from 25/3 to something, other people have been looking at their constituents and their public, and they've been trying to make some improvements here. So we're going to be getting information out about the libraries and hopefully getting responses back about the kind of tech service or computer support services that they have. So that's one aspect of what we're going to try to build. Thanks.
Good.
And part of it is just everybody's in a very different spot at the moment. So part of it is just trying to get a good sense across the entire group where everybody stands. So what you may need for a library in Sagadahoc County can be completely different than, say, a library in Union or Rockport. So they may need different types of support for what they need. And we'll help out with whatever they need as best we can. Right now, as we're just starting, though, it's just trying to get a good sense for everybody where we are and what everybody needs. All right. Yes, John.
Yeah, John Gibbons, Town of Union. I understand what we're doing right now, what we'll be doing over the next few months, but I'm having difficulty visualizing where we're headed, what the final output is likely to be. This broadband equity plan that we're describing to each other as the final product. Has anybody thought through what this equity plan might consist of, what it might look like? I mean, if you ask any one of the towns what they're looking for in terms of broadband, they will tell you we want high-speed internet access across the entire town with no exceptions. Fiber or cable or both, all over the town. What is this broadband equity plan, the final product of this organization, this group, going to look like? What's its scope? Where are we headed?
I think that I'm going to give it a shot here. I think what we're looking to do, to me, is to strengthen the ways that your citizens connect to the internet. So not with the improved fiber or improved cable, but what we're looking at is among those covered populations, among those several groups of neighbors that we have that can't afford to be online or don't have the right equipment, we're going to be proposing a budget that will cover expenses. And I don't want to put any numbers associated with them right now, but whether it's for the purchase of tablets, laptops, more affordability subscription, better rates, other things, perhaps I'm going to make that up now, maybe another public access computer at your community center or your library. So in the long run, we don't want to just sit on a plan. That's what Maggie does not want to sit on a plan. We're looking to tap into those resources so that in every single town, or maybe where you guys share a library or so, resources can be strengthened at the senior center, at the library, at the community anchor spots that you have. I'm thinking it's going to make a difference at the local level with the way that people can tap into affordably, tap into the internet. Well, yeah, that's my take on this.
Great. Appreciate that. That's good. Thanks.
Yep. As kind of a continuation that on a more practical sense as it comes to the individual towns is, as the coalition gets a lot of the information and helps out the groups, it's definitely going to help you directly taking that information and going to the towns and filling out grant programs to pay for the infrastructure buildup. So as we get this information in, you'll be able to, well, we can share it out and you'll be able to say, here is the percentage of the community that needs this help, either affording it, or they need the technology help, or this is how many people left in our community who simply need fiber put in. And you can take that information and fold it into the language you will need to apply for infrastructure grants, for directly putting in that hard infrastructure.
So Brandon, infrastructure means more than just broadband access, more than just fiber and cable.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So you've got as far as infrastructure, you've got the physical part of it, which is the physical fiber, the Wi-Fi connections, the substations for it. And then you've got the infrastructure of support. So the coalition, the CMRB, that's on the support side of the infrastructure piece. So we're there to make sure, or to help give the communities the education to use everything, to make sure it's out there, to make sure all the individual groups are connected with each other and can talk with each other a little bit easier.
Gotcha. Good.
Okay.
Can I just jump in here real quick? One of the things that struck me as we were going through this process with MCA was, when we complete the digital equity plan for our region and it goes on to the state, that then becomes a conduit for federal funds to come into our state. If we can identify the barriers that our citizens, the people in our region experience to get connection, to have the right equipment, to have the education to use it, then we can identify where those resources, when they come into the state, where they need to be invested and where we can make funds available through this process to help you fulfill those needs and to overcome those barriers. So this is a short-term goal for us to finish this plan with a really long-range rollout coming down the road with years to come. There's a lot of federal money coming through the fire hose right now. And we want to make sure that that fire hose is directed to our region so that we can identify and meet some of the needs that you have.
Yeah, and I'll jump in for a second. You know, there's a lot of information coming at you from a lot of different places. And when it really comes down to it, here's the bottom line of what we're talking about. What are the barriers to those 5 components of digital inclusion? What are the solutions?
We're losing you a little bit, Susan.
That can fix that, and how much broadband partners the state is going to. Can you hear me okay, Mary Ellen?
I think we missed a little bit. You were trying to cover the 5 barriers. So I don't know.
Yes. Can you turn your video off? That'll help your audio come through better.
I can do that.
Thank you.
So what we're talking about is really breaking it down to this. What are the barriers to those 5 components of digital inclusion? How are we going to fix it? And how much is it going to cost? Each of the rural and tribal broadband partners, there are 13 across the state, are going to submit their recommendations, their barriers, their recommendation, and their budgets to Maine Connectivity Authority. The state is going to put all of those 13 plans together, submit it to the federal government for approval, and then once it's approved, they can apply for capacity grants, which will then filter back down to the regional level so that you can execute your plans. And it's fast, and we're, you know, there's I wish we had more time on it, but we don't. And so, you know, that's why we need everyone's help here.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So we've had a lot of really good questions so far. Does anybody have anything else? Okay.
Did you want me to mention the Maine Broadband Coalition? If I could just take 2 minutes. So many of you have been involved with broadband for eons, and you know that the Maine Broadband Coalition was really early at the table in Maine. It was a volunteer group. I think they've just recently become incorporated, but that's a resource now, an educational resource now. One, they want you to take the speed test. They want everybody to take the speed test, but more, they've got the, boy, if you're just entering the world of this kind of issue, whether it's infrastructure or digital equity, they've got weekly chats. So I really recommend that you, I think they don't call them chats, they call them Let's Talk Broadband or Broadband 101. So it's a great set of staff people down there or wherever they are. But again, they've been here as an organization for many years, sponsored the early Maine broadband summits. And again, it's another resource that's available to all of us. And we'll send you links to them.
Alan, can I say one thing before we finish up? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Carlos, some of you might know I'm in Georgetown, so I'm participating in this, but I'm also on the MCA board, representing communities. And we are also in the midst of finishing the construction of the fiber network in Georgetown. And what I can say is that, you know, I think that was a really good question by John about, you know, is it just about, you know, fiber on poles and making sure everybody has access through the fiber? But I think that this is the more, for me, interesting part, which is making sure that everyone understands, or we all understand as communities, how people interact with each other and use these tools, which is what this is, infrastructure and tools, to be able to create better communities. And so to Deb's point, you know, how do we make sure that we actually engage people who are off the grid in a sense? How do we make sure everyone is involved in this process? And this is an incredibly important part of the process for you, wherever your community is, and whether or not your network is in place and you've got 80%, or whether or not your network is still being built out. So I just, this is really important work. And to John's point, how does this all fit together? It's all sort of layered components to each other. And the MCA work is to be able to sort of accelerate all this and incorporate it together in their thinking. So thank you for all this. And I'm happy, just as someone who's answering emails every day from people asking questions about what fiber means and what connectivity means, I can say there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of little rocks to look under. So, I think everybody should really look and think about how their community talks to each other and really put that into this, this framework and this asset inventory. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. So for everyone, our first coalition meeting is today. Our next meeting will be by county. Everyone will be afforded an invite, but we will be going to each individual county. So the first county meeting will be on the 16th, and that will be in Lincoln County. Then we will be going to Knox, and finally Sagadahoc. And as soon as we nail down exactly a location where we will be physically meeting, we will be posting those dates as well as Zoom links, because they will be hybrid meetings, to our website, as well as sending out an email to everyone. There has been a few post to the chat about different surveys. And we will be talking with everybody about that and sending out more information as those become available. But one thing we would like everybody to do before you leave today is we've got just a short survey that we'd like everybody to work on. And I'll post it to the chat. All it is you're just confirming your name, email address, contact information. And I'll bring it up here in a second so you can see what I'm looking at. Sorry. There we go. So your name, organization / town, email address, phone number, county of residence, and then if any of you can think of any other groups that you didn't see, and we've already had a handful of good suggestions. If any of you can think of other people who might be interested, other groups who might be interested, and think of what's in your local area, write their name down. If you know their contact information, feel free to add it. If not, we'll try to follow up with either you or that particular group and build this out even further. So if each of you could fill out this survey before you leave, that would be very much appreciated.
I've also put in the chat the link to the larger survey that, from what we heard today from Maggie, is on the MCA website. It's been finalized in the last week or two, so it's good to go, good to take. So again, we are going to be promoting this because this is going to be a statewide survey about digital equity issues. So you'll hear from us again about that, but and we're going to be trying to boost it out around the 3-county area so that as many people can take this as possible. And I didn't know, Brandon, about your closing remarks, but I just wanted to ask if anyone, if there's anyone that hasn't spoken yet that would like to ask a question or toss their opinion our way or make a suggestion. Happy to hear from anyone who hasn't had the time to speak yet.
Okay, don't hear anybody, or if you're just being bashful or you're having internet issues, feel free to contact any of us. I'll put our webpage in the chat again, and you'll see contact information for both Mary Ellen and myself. Feel free to send any questions you have along. And if you're filling out the survey and you can't think of a group, but you do in a day or two from now, definitely contact us. That would be very much appreciated. Well, unless anybody else has anything to chime in, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us for our first coalition meeting. We will be sending out information for the hybrid meetings for each of the counties. And again, everybody's invited, either in person or virtually if you can make it. But we're trying to make it a little more attuned to those communities. But we will be posting those to our website as well as sending out email and social media reminders. All right, so thank you all again.
Thanks, everybody. I see there's a Wiscasset meeting about to take place. Okay, take care, everybody.